All right, YouTube, we're live. We're going old school today. I'm doing something that I've only done, I think, one time before, an interview via Google Hangouts. We've only done this once before. We did it right when I moved into this house when we were building out the studio, and we didn't have a studio. My first ever interview with Jordan Peterson, which was the first time that I ever talked to Jordan, we did via Google Hangouts sitting in my living room over there. Yesterday, I was supposed to have Avi Yemini, who is in that box right there, who I'll introduce to you in a second. I was supposed to have him right here in studio for a normal show, and he was on his way a couple days ago from Australia to the United States, which is a freaking long ass heck. I took a 15-hour flight from I guess it was from Sydney to Texas a couple weeks ago after a 5-hour flight, I think from Perth to Sydney or something like that. I mean, it was like 30 something hours of total travel. Anyway, it's a long ass flight. He tried to enter the United States and he was denied entry. Now, why did all this happen? Well, I'm going to kick it to Avi right now. Avi, first off, before we do anything else here, for any of my audience that does not know who you are, what's the best way to describe? Do you consider yourself a YouTuber? Are you a provocateur? You're sort of a quasi 2019 journalist. What do you consider yourself?
Well, now I'm actually a journalist, for a freelance journalist. I work mostly with TR.news. I started I was a business owner, and I go by the tag Australian, so I'm Australian Israeli. Proud of both. Love the free Western way of life. I kind of fell into this. I was a gym owner that ran Krav Maga gyms, if you know what they are.
Yeah.
After my Israeli army service. And to be honest, it was really when one of the operations in Gaza kind of kicked off, and I was watching like the mainstream media report on it, and I was getting so frustrated with their reporting. And I had really popular gyms at the time. I just started kind of commenting and writing what I experienced myself and what I knew to be true from the ground, from someone who actually served on the front line there. And I guess it's kind of started a conversation. I lost a lot of members at the time. I also gained a few, but I guess after that, I kind of found a voice, and I continue kind of commenting on all sorts of political issues. And people kind of gave me some constructive criticism. People that I like, people that I trust. So maybe don't use your business page for that. So
Yeah.
I opened a Facebook page. I just started speaking, and no, YouTube is a new thing for me, to be honest, because before that I was 100% on Facebook until they kicked me off, and apparently hate speech, which I don't believe I ever engage in, but obviously it's very broad, those terms. So that's where I am today. I work mainly for Tommy Robinson, who is very well known, obviously, in the UK.
Yeah, and I think Tommy, we were trying to get him in here, and I interviewed him once years ago on Skype, and I don't even think he's allowed to come to the United States either. So you're in company with people
Good
that
company.
can't get into the good old United States. Okay, so I want you to tell exactly what happened with Jim Jefferies and Comedy Central. I should preface this by saying that until the clip that I saw of you, which now has millions and millions, I think over 3 million views on YouTube. I have never seen Jim Jefferies' show. I don't really know who he is. I know he's a comedian, but I don't really know who he is. So I have no, dog in this fight one way or another. It's not like I'm a fan of his or a hater of his. I don't really watch Comedy Central. I don't think anyone really watches Comedy Central anymore. I think pretty much. I think I know the last time I watched Comedy Central was when Jon Stewart was still hosting the Daily Show. He had Ayaan Hirsi Ali on, and he threw her under the bus. And I don't know if you've seen it. It was one of the most disgusting interviews I've ever seen. It's really, really awful. And I pretty much just tuned out of Comedy Central then. And, I think since then, well, I guess maybe is Futurama still on there?
I have no idea. I don't even watch it. To be honest,
Yeah.
Jim Jeffries is an Aussie who got famous in America. He was kind of crappy here. He likes to drop the C bomb a lot. I guess in America you folk kind of find that fascinating and funny. Um, one thing I did like, I was a fan of his ones because he would push the boundaries. He wasn't politically correct. He would make jokes about kind of anything. Uh, But I think over the last few years, especially when it comes to the gun debate, he's found his little place in Hollywood. And even in some of the clips that I released after that, or if you watch the whole clip, you can see I challenge him on it. I call him, I tell him he's a sellout. And he admits that the life in Hollywood is nice. So you can't really, like, I don't blame him for that part of it. Like, I can understand it's
Okay,
tempting.
so yeah. So before we get too far ahead, though, and I have no doubt that at the Viacom building in New York City and in LA right now, there are plenty of executives watching this. So you could talk
Hey, guys.
directly to them, and you can talk directly to Jim. I suspect Jim is not going to retweet this, although I did tag him in it. But anyway, I preface it that way just to say
I'm
I have
surprised
nothing.
you're not blocked.
I know, I'm sure I'll be blocked soon enough. But I preface it that way just to say I have nothing against the guy specifically until I saw what happened. And now it's like, this is just such, the reason I wanted to have you on was that it's such a perfect example of fake news, of media manipulation, the way that these people often, these media personalities privately do one thing and publicly do another. I mean, it's just, and then really to your credit, that you were smart enough to videotape the whole thing. So just start at the beginning. How did you even get on the Jim Jefferies show?
So his producer did call me. I think it was December time. I was in Israel at the time, if I remember correctly, or maybe I was in Europe. But he'd given me a call. It said, "Listen, Jim's traveling Australia at the moment. He's organizing. He's doing a tour in Australia, but he was running a special for Netflix or one of these Comedy Central specials. And he was wondering if I would be willing to come on to discuss immigration, to discuss the border wall. And I know who Jim Jefferies is, and I know where he stands, or at least publicly where he stands these days on issues. And I'm somebody that's confident in my beliefs. I have no problem, discussing anything with anyone. But I also know he's untrustworthy, and I've been involved in the media for long enough to know that I need to set out some conditions. And I set out two basic conditions. One, don't put me with neo-Nazis or anyone who believes Hitler is a good dude. And two is just put my answers to the questions that you asked me. Don't cut it up. It's a technique that they love doing. And, I do a lot of street interviews myself, and I would never do that to somebody because there's no point. The whole idea is if somebody is stupid or if somebody answers something ridiculously, you don't need to cut it.
Yeah.
You can actually just put it out there, and everybody, the world is there to judge.
Yeah, but that's kind of the game these guys have been playing for a long time, right? Like
Yes.
I interned at the Daily Show back in 1999. It's a long freaking time ago. And I remember, I don't know that they were doing what he did with you, which is taking an answer to one question and placing it to another. But I always remember thinking when they get these local Republicans on and then mock them the whole time, it's like, what were these idiots thinking? Like, you're walking into the Daily Show.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be selectively edited, or they're going to put a pause on you in a weird way for a laugh, or just some level of manipulation. So you went out of your way before.
I think people, just don't expect it to be so bad. Like, to be honest, the last one I'd seen of Jim Jefferies is what he did to Jordan Peterson. And I thought to myself, I look at someone like Jordan Peterson, and I look at him, and he's an academic. He's far smarter than me. And if Jim Jefferies could make him kind of look like a dumbass, then obviously he's out to get me. So they agreed to those terms, and they flew me to Singapore. I told them the third issue is that I'm just not in Australia at the moment, so I'm happy to do it. If you agree to those two conditions, I'm happy to do it, but obviously it has to be the time that I can. It worked out that they flew me to Singapore, paid for my hotel, paid for all my expenses. It was a great little trip. I walk in there, and I also spoke to my good friend Tommy Robinson, who's had a lot of experience with fake news. And he agreed straight away. He said, make sure you've got footage of it. So I went in there, and I thought I had two phones, not one phone, two phones. I went in there because I wanted to make sure in case one collapsed, which it actually did. That's why if you look at the footage, some of it's blurry because the blurry one actually recorded the whole thing. And I walk in there, and I was thinking, if they stop me and I started recording from the moment I walked in, because I said, if they stop me, I don't care. At that point, if they kick me out, while I'm setting up my cameras to film myself, then that's my video. Show that they're not even willing to engage me without trying to screw me. But nobody noticed. Nobody noticed anything. And I sat it up. It was couches, and I put these pillows there. It took me a good minute, and I even went back and reset it. It was, they were so self-absorbed.
Yeah, they're so fat. They're so fat on their egos or their importance or something.
Absolutely. And I just filmed the whole thing. Now, it was a couple of months, I think, till I just held on to it. I could have put that Muhammad stuff out straight away. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm a man of my word. I want to see how this plays out. And I was actually at a Purim event. So what is it? A couple of weeks ago. And I didn't even know the segment had been released. And some, Chabad rabbi walks up to me and goes, "Oh, I saw your Jim Jefferies thing last night. He screwed you," or I think his wording was more like he wrecked you. Like it was as if that even he believed the context of the interview and that all the cuts were actually true. And I'm sitting there like after a few, Purim drinks, and I've just opened up my phone and I'm just watching and I'm going, I can't believe this. He's literally put me in the context of Christchurch, of the Christchurch massacre, with some crazy white supremacist who hates my guts 100%. He believes that Jews should be in Israel.
Yeah.
He doesn't think Israeli is a good thing.
And just to be very clear, you taped the interview a good 2-3 months before the Christchurch.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, and I'm looking at it and I'm in shock. I'm saying they've cut up my answers. In 20 seconds of the clip, they have the most prominent neo-Nazi in Australia. They've cut up not even just my answers, even my facial reaction, my expressions. They took like expressions when he would say something bizarre, and I would like, cringe up my face. He's taken that and cut it with, reasonable questions that he's asked. And he's even said, the best part was I got him saying he can cut it up to make himself look perfect. So I honestly, I went home and I just myself, I went and I said, I told the Chabad guy there, the rabbi, I said, wait till tomorrow, you'll see the truth. Then I went back and now what's odd to me is I expected that once they see that, they will retract immediately. They will apologize. They will remove the defamatory content. No, they didn't do any of that. And they still haven't done any of that. In fact, I managed to get banned on YouTube. It picked up. I managed to get banned within 24 hours from posting that on Facebook. Facebook denies it has anything to do with that, but they won't give me any proof of any other post that has that breached their terms and conditions. In fact, I didn't post anything for that period besides for the Jim Jefferies stuff. So I don't know what it possibly can be.
Right. Okay. So for the people that haven't seen it, so he splices answers that you give to other questions to make it seem like you're racist, basically.
I'm a radical. I'm crazy. And the fact is, if I'd watched that, I don't like that guy. I would hate that guy. And that was what it was designed to do, was to make me look like a bad nut job, and he tried to make it like he literally says in it, the only thing that can bring Jews and white supremacists together is their shared hate for Muslims. Absolutely outrageous, disgusting. The fact is, I've never shown hate for Muslims ever in my life, because I think hating on a people is wrong. As a Jew, I find that offensive to to target a people. To criticize Islam, I always do it, because I think any idea should be, tried and tested and discussed. But
so it wasn't just though that he manipulated what you said. What you also caught him saying off camera, and this really, to me, this is the beauty of it, because I think even if beforehand you said to them, guys, don't sandbag me, don't edit my stuff, and they promised to do all that, like, I live in Hollywood, I know how this business works. They're all liars and frauds, and they'll say anything and do any of that. But the real, I think, the real meat of this is what you caught him saying, because that really shows the 180 on reality. So could you lay out some of that?
So he's look, Jim Jeffries used to say a lot of that stuff publicly in a lot of his original shows. Lately, obviously, he's become a very good liberal, lovey-dovey. It's all about and the thing is that segment, that specific segment, was about pointing at people like me and blaming us for radicalizing people like that crazy Christchurch killer. He's gone in there. He's drawn Muhammad. You know, he's he even went as far as making it. He made a few jokes and said how much he hates Islam. And fine, fair enough. I actually have no problem with what he
Right.
said, and especially in the context of comedy, I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think you have the right then to turn around and point fingers at someone like me who would never even say anything close to what he said, even as a joke. In fact, I had to pull him up at one point where he was joking about dingoes killing little Muslim babies and vomiting, which is just not even funny.
Yeah.
And now, for those who are out there who are claiming that he only said it to bait me, well, no, actually, originally he used to be like that. He used to say that publicly. He's changed because now that's where he's following the money. He obviously doesn't believe anything he preaches. He's two-faced. He's exactly the definition of two-faced and fake.
But also, if he was trying to bait you to do the baiting off camera and then your answers on camera, I mean, that in and of itself, again, this is not surprising how these guys operate, but that would show you a little bit of the motivations there.
Absolutely. He came in with certain intentions, and the thing is, he didn't get the outcome he wanted. So the only way to produce it was literally to reproduce it, to cut it up. And anyone can look stupid when you do that, and anyone can look bad, and you can literally ruin someone's life. If I didn't capture that, my life would be ruined because
Yeah.
there's no way for me to be able to defend against any of what he's put out there, and I still find it crazy that till today they've not only not responded, they've blocked and banned a lot of people. And you can look, some people aren't getting banned. You and me so far not. But if you look at my Twitter, there's posts up there that I keep retweeting of people just banned, and for what they're saying is literally, can you at least face what you've done, Jim? Can Comedy Central make a statement? Can you do something? But nothing. They're just blocking. They've actually restricted comments on Instagram.
So that's what I think is so interesting here, because it's such a perfect storm of all of the crap that sort of I'm always talking about here and what's wrong with the media, and then how people, individuals online are able to fight back. Because right now, if you look at Comedy Central's Twitter feed or the Jim Jefferies show specifically, if you look at their mentions, it is, no matter what he tweets, it's real people, decent human beings saying, are you going to address this and all that? So before we get to what happened when you tried to get to the United States to be in the studio yesterday, if Comedy Central today or Jim Jeffries personally issued an apology, admitted the whole thing, which now everyone knows to be true, so it's not much of a mea culpa, because it's like, yeah, you're just admitting what blatantly is obvious. Would you accept that and then just move on from this situation?
Well. Every day that passes, the bigger the apology is going to have to be. The louder it's going to have to be, because it now on all their social media platforms, that defamatory video has been up. What is it? 2 weeks now. They've been running it on cable TV. It's been everywhere. So they've kind of got to reach everyone they've reached to. And now, having said that, I think my video has reached more than theirs, but I don't know if it's the same audience. They need to really show that they finally accept what they did and that it was wrong. And it is not, I've heard a lot of people turn around and go, oh, but how can you take Comedy Central serious? After all, it's called Comedy Central. But I don't accept that, because one, it wasn't a joke what they were discussing. It wasn't a joke the time that they were discussing. It wasn't a joke that they were pointing at me for someone who was partly responsible in making that happen. It's not a joke to cut somebody up. I don't mind. I make fun of myself all day, every day. If you watch my YouTube, I have no problem doing that. But there are certain lines that even I don't get offended easily, but I am freaking offended by the content that they produce. So
Yeah.
yes, in theory, I would accept an apology and them taking responsibility, but it has to match the amount they've pushed the fake news till now.
Yeah, and I don't even know how they could do that at this point. I mean, and it's so interesting also because that's why I decided to do a long form interview show in the first place years ago. Because I was like, I'll do these things. We won't edit for content. I like doing them live. You can say whatever you want. I can't edit you. And ironically, when I do,
I could turn this camera off then, eh? No.
yeah, exactly. But like when I do television, it's so funny because Fox News is the only one that'll put me on. I was on Tucker last night, but it's live. There's no chance that they could sandbag me, ask me something intentionally inflammatory, but it's all live. And
absolutely, and I have no
just wouldn't go
problem
on
with
these shows anymore. That wouldn't be
look, I know people were criticizing me for going, why would you even do it? Well, there's two things. One is I knew I was going to record it, so it was a win-win. I was going to either get a good segment where I actually got to reach an audience that I wouldn't typically be able to reach and have my say and present my opinions, and maybe change a few minds, maybe not, whatever, but at least be presented properly, or I'm going to get to expose the fake news. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm going to call them fake news, even though they are Comedy Central, because that is what they did. And people come to those shows to get the news these days. It's sad. It is sad, but people come to those shows to get their news. And the fact is, if they present it as real news, then it is just the same. It is all the same. And they have that platform. They have that responsibility.
Well, I completely agree with that because, remember when Jon Stewart was hosting The Daily Show, I mean, I know no one watches it anymore. It's completely irrelevant. But when Stewart was hosting The Daily Show and Obama was president, the meme out there on all of mainstream media, every article that was written about Daily Show was more young people get their news from The Daily Show than from CNN, New York Times,
And
So
it's
they're
true.
trying to have it both ways.
But it's true. Like even here in Australia, we have. I don't know if you were experiencing the project. I don't know if Jordan was here when you guys were here on the project. The project is the same thing. It's meant to be, a light-hearted comedy, and it does reach the younger people. And it's just not funny to take people out of context to ruin people's lives. It's wrong.
Okay, so now you get on a plane. So the video goes viral. Everybody's seeing this. You're getting retweeted, I think, by all the people that I know really try to push back against this mainstream media nonsense. And I didn't know who you were before, so I watched it and I was like, all right, this is legit. Like I'm watching.
I didn't know you're going to make hurtful statements in this interview. You didn't know me before, mate. Jesus.
Hey, I know you now. But I've seen this game before, so I was more than happy to just spread awareness about this. Okay.
Yep.
So then you reach out and you say, well, I think maybe I reached out to you first and I said, if you want to come in studio, let's make this happen.
Yep.
Within a day, you were like, all right, I'm coming to the States. So what? So
it was actually you. It was you that inspired me to come. When you said we started the conversation, I can't remember exactly how it started, but I said, you know what? And I spoke to Sydney Watson, who's a good friend here, who's very popular. She's a Sky News contributor. She has her own following, and she was like, yeah, let's do it. She's a dual citizen, American Australian. And we said, let's do this. Let's go. We already have something. We have something in place. We're going to go on Rubin, and then we're going to go, my idea was to go to Comedy Central, just walk in the door, talk to somebody with the Comedy Central logo on them. I'm not, anyone can watch any of my content. When I'm asked to leave, I leave. But that's good enough for me. I'll walk into Comedy Central, and if I bring up some content that you've got and you ask me to leave, that's telling. That's enough visual that somebody in Comedy Central literally, right now that's been my problem is no one even wants to respond. The same producer that was so open to talking to me before is not responding to my WhatsApp messages anymore.
That's what's so interesting to me. It's like they don't even understand the internet game that they think that they're part of. Like they think that if you just ignore this long enough, that it's going to go away. But I mean, they're messing with the wrong audience here.
I keep telling them. Usually, there's two people they need to talk to. They can talk to my mum, ask her how persistent I am. I'm a pain in her ass. Two is speak to my officer in the army. Like I flew halfway around the world just to join the IDF to be on the front line in a specific unit. And I got there. Like I'm going to go till they respond, and they need to know that. So we decided to do this. We called it the American Tour Against Fake News. we were going to come to you on your show, a few other shows that are organized. And it was just growing. It was you in the beginning, and we just thought we'll build around that. I was going to go to his Jim Jefferies show in Maryland, see if I can actually engage him.
Oh man.
And I was going to talk to just even the people lining up in the audience. Now, I want to make it clear, I was going to do it not in a threatening manner. I'm tiny. Like, I'm a little guy. I've never, and you can see I go into some places and online you see everyone's a lot bigger than me. Generally, I'm the smallest guy in the room. I'm not very threatening, and I'm willing to talk to anybody and only talk. I only ever talk. So there's no basis for any perceived real threat. But when we got to the States, it was myself and Sydney. Sydney's bigger than me, but she's a tall girl. And we get there, and she's with her, she's got her American thing. So we're split up straight away. I've gone into the line. Now, as soon as I've come to the immigration desk, something's obviously popped up on his screen as soon as he's swiped my passport. And he goes, "Oh, you just need to come with me. We need to update some details about your, I think it's called ESTA, like the visa waiver program that we have here with Australia." So I'm fine. At this point, I still think it's okay. They're acting quite normal. Takes me to a back room. A superior officer is there. And I found it interesting because he kind of seemed like he knew my name already. And he was expecting me. But I went with the flow. They've taken me around in LAX to an area where it's more secluded. They put your bags on a thing. They're going through my bags, checking if I've got over $10,000. I wish I did. No, nothing close to it. They're asking me more questions about what I'm doing here. And it's all still reasonable. I'm starting to get a little bit more suspicious. They've written down a bunch of stuff, and then they go, "Okay, we've got a few more questions. We'll go sit in this room and talk about that." I knew it's on. They open the door to this back room. There's two FBI agents. There's a man in a suit and a woman behind a computer. And they've shown their ID, go FBI. I saw that, and I just cracked up laughing. I looked at them, and I just go, Comedy Central. And the agent turns to me and goes, "We are actually a separate entity to Comedy Central." Like, he had to say that, like he had to tell me that. And I've responded going, "Well, but Comedy Central is the informant, yeah." And he's just responded straight away. And this is when people ask me, "How do you know it's Comedy Central?" Well, he's gone. He said to me, literally, "We've received a number of complaints from Comedy Central about certain things that we just want to clarify."
Okay, so wait, we got to really drill this one home. That means that Comedy Central contacted either the FBI or the TSA or whatever else is going on there.
From the FBI is what I understand. Or maybe they called law enforcement who decided it's in the jurisdiction of FBI.
Because they knew that you were coming to the United States, I guess, to do a couple shows, including this one, and you were going to just talk.
I don't know if you saw my description on the... it was on my website, the description of what we were doing there. So we were coming on your show, we're going on Steven Crowder, we're going, and that we were going to go confront. Exactly. So they've called and they've literally given screenshots. They've taken screenshots of different posts I've made, including one from a British conservative news site, which, how dare they use an image of me as an IDF soldier with my rifle. And they've basically taken everything and gone through it as in, are they threatening? Am I trying to obtain weapons? I turned to them, I go, the only weapons I have that I need in this tour is my microphone and my camera. That's all. And look, by the end of it, the FBI had cleared me. The FBI were laughing with me about it. They actually said to me, "I understand why you want to come and clear your name. Yeah. That's fine." They got it. They were actually really nice. Like, I have no problem with them. I have no problem with the border protection either. My problem here is that Comedy Central, who have been ignoring all of this, had the time to go to the FBI. They've gone out of their way to just silence it first online when all these people are, responding back, asking them just to make a statement. They're blocking people by the hundreds. And then on top of that, when they hear I'm coming to the States, they literally contacted the FBI to try get them to stop me from coming on the premise that I am coming there to violently assault somebody.
Okay, so going on the assumption you were not here to violently assault and that the FBI was on board that and that they accepted what you were laying out, that you were just here to do interviews and that sort of thing,
Yep.
which are obviously all true. And and the fact that Comedy Central, I mean, it really it shows some other layer of really perverse collusion between networks and the FBI. I mean, how insane is that? But they did catch you on a technicality related to something from years ago. So it's important. I think it's important to talk about. Otherwise, people are going to think, "Whoa, the FBI is in on some real conspiracy."
No. So this is right. So once that happened, it obviously triggered whatever process the Border Protection have, which is to go through everything within your visa or visa waiver, whatever it is that you're coming in on. And what they found, we had a few, it was over, the interrogation with the FBI was for about an hour. Then there was a couple of other, interviews with different Border Protection, with the highest levels in LAX, who and actually I'm not going to, won't hurt their jobs, but they were actually really good people. I have no problem with them, and I believe in Border Protection. And if somebody makes a mistake, like what they found. So what it turns out is 2 years ago when I filled out this visa waiver application online, which I want to point out, I had come even 7 months ago. I was in New York. I'd been in the States on this same visa from that same application. So there was no problem, and it was an absolute technicality. So what they found is when you fill out these visa waiver forms online, there's a bunch of crazy questions. And, you're just like, I read them like, no, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not this. I'm not a neo-Nazi. I'm not there to create violence. I've never been. So you just do no. One of them happened to say, have you ever been denied a visa to the US? Now, about 15 years ago, I came on a visa waiver, and right after I got back to Australia, I applied for a visa. They thought that implied that I was trying to come there to live. So I was trying to immigrate to the US, and I got denied a visa. Now, I don't know. I don't even remember filling in the form, so I don't know. But that happened. And I said that openly to the Border Protection officer. That technicality means that it makes the application void enough. It means, so they were saying to me, look, you're not getting banned. There's nothing wrong. It's an accident. In fact, they said to me, if we basically investigate the same way we did yours, scrutinize every person that comes here on a visa waiver, probably half of them will end up doing a mistake on that application, and they'll be thrown out as well. All you got to do is go back to Australia and apply for a visa. You can't use the visa waiver program anymore. You've got to actually have a visa because you have been denied. Now, just to remember, this is a technicality on a technicality, because I only got refused the visa back then because I was trying to immigrate. Well, in their minds, it was the risk that I was trying to immigrate to the US. Now, obviously, when I was there 7 months ago, I didn't immigrate to the US. So even that was wrong. But I accept that decision.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. I'm here. I'm going to reapply. And if everything they're saying is true, I'm going to get in because I have no criminal record. I'm not there's no reason for me not to get the visa. My problem with it all is that practically, on a practical level, Comedy Central got me kicked out, even in the short term. Even in the short term, they managed to get me kicked out because the fact that they were able to go to the FBI and complain, they triggered this investigation. They got me out on a technicality that, in their own words, most people, or at least half the people that come into the US, would fail as well.
Right. So the point here is that 7 months ago you got in with no problem, and that Comedy Central then triggers this by contacting the FBI, shows that they have some level of power, even if the agents are going, yeah, this is nonsense. It was 15 years ago. And everyone knows when you're going when you're landing in another country or you're filling out these things, sometimes they're written in very confusing ways where you almost think no means yes.
Listen, I'm not even going to take that excuse because
Yeah.
when they printed it out for me, it was very clear. But there are so many questions, and most of them are crazy. So you just kind of do no. In the time, I wouldn't have lied about it for nothing, because I would have thought if I'd seen that, obviously they'll know if I've been denied or not. It's their immigration. I can't believe they didn't pick it up automatically. But
Yeah.
yes, so that's exactly what's happened.
So have you, this is a weird thing that I think the free speech crew is now confronted with, where, when we're the ones that are getting libeled and slandered all the time and having reputations destroyed and having media manipulated and video edited and all of these things, it's a weird place for us to be the ones having to talk about legal remedies. But have you thought about this at all?
We are at the moment. Yes, we've got a few things going on, and that we're working. We're going to fight this from a few fronts. And my main objective, more than anything, is to get them to face up to what they've done and to respond and take responsibility over it, because it is wrong. I don't care if you're from the left, if you're from the right. I don't care. To do that, to do what they've done, and further to add insult to injury, to at every point that you have a chance to stand up and take that responsibility, take and apologize, not only to me, apologize to your fans. I've seen so many people on Jim Jefferies things that have actually said, I don't even like Avi, I don't even like what he stands for, I don't agree with anything. But what you did is wrong. At least give those, do the right thing. And, when I was in the airport at the time, I was detained for about 15 hours. And the hardest part for me in that time is, besides being treated like a criminal, was the fact that Sydney Watson was sitting in the airport, lost, didn't, waiting for, we had a flight together to New York. She's just sitting there not knowing what's going on. I kept asking Border Protection if they were informing her. They said yes. I got one phone call. In fact, they were good. They actually gave me 2 phone calls, and he let me tweet. He just said, "Don't tweet anything about me, brother." But they were nice to me. But the fact is that, I was sitting there going, "Is she all right?" It's a foreign country. She might have American citizenship, but she's an Aussie. We're friends from here, and we went to travel together. We're not criminal. I've suddenly been detained. She got questioned as well. She was also investigated, but they couldn't do anything. She's American. So it was, and for her, since I've seen on her, I didn't even really know everything she went through till I watched her YouTube summary of what she'd gone through on that day, and it's horrible, and it's painful for me to watch it, because it all comes down to Comedy Central literally trying to silence us.
What's also crazy to me is the way that they don't know how this game will play out. It's like, if they would have done, well, first off, doing the right thing would have been not selectively editing. But okay, let's say they can't do it that way because they're playing a certain game. Well, then once you call them out on it, you just immediately, we messed this one up, especially after the Christchurch thing where emotions were so high. It's coming off a horrific tragedy that you had taped this thing way before. I mean, there was a way they could have gotten out. We just botched this one. That's it. But now they've got it to the point, and that's why I wanted to do this with you, where the longer they let this stew, it's not just that at this point, in a way, Jim Jefferies should be fired, or at least I don't like calling for this kind of stuff. This is so not how I do this, but it's like his executive producer or whoever made those decisions should be fired. But the longer they go on, you're getting this to the place where you're going to have to take out major executives are going to have to be fired, because somebody is now making these decisions. And the way these corporations work, it's going to be pretty obvious through emails and meetings who made the decisions to throw you under the bus, who made the decision to contact the FBI.
And we're going to get to the bottom of all that. We are going to find out at the end of it, because I am persistent. Like I said, what's bothering me is that the mainstream media are not talking about it. And that is obviously, like I said to you before we came on, is that I believe they think it's a non-story, or they're scared to report on it, because suddenly the camera is going to be on them, because they all do it. And that's why it's so important. And I feel grateful that people like you, and there's been a few alternative online media people who actually have integrity, who have reported on it and are as outraged about it as I am. Like I'm watching it from the side, like not even in my. If I just saw that from the side, I would be disgusted because it is so wrong. And I like even if it was somebody I absolutely disagree with, I would be
Yeah.
because it is wrong.
Well, that's what I was saying to you before. It's like it's the perfect storm of craziness. It's media manipulation, it's leftist insanity, it's dishonest hosts, it's all of these things
Everything.
at once. Do you remember about 2 months ago, Ali Stuckey, who was actually on my show last week, who's a conservative podcaster? She did a fake interview with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez where they just sliced Ali's questions with
I've seen
Alexandria.
Ben Shapiro did one like that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. So similar thing.
Yeah.
And it's like Ali posted
It looks
and it was
real.
so obvious that it was fake. And it was so obvious that this is exactly what Comedy Central does all the time.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what, Daily Show and all these things do all the time. But the media went bananas that it was the conservatives spreading a fake interview to make AOC look ridiculous. And it's like, you guys do this to people on the right every single day. That is actually your number one motivation.
I think that's pretty much the only person you don't need to cut anything up to make
Right.
look stupid.
Yeah, exactly. She's doing a fine job by herself.
But yeah, I know, and they're all hypocrites. And like I'm telling you, I watch it. I actually thought within a day there would be mainstream media, and there's been a couple. Like in Australia, there's a for the Daily Telegraph, a man called Tim Blair. He's written a few times about it. But Channel 10 News in Australia, they only wrote about it in the context of me being deported. In fact, it was a disgusting story at first, and I called her out on Twitter, and within 2 minutes she called me back, and she in her report she actually wrote, "We reached out to Avi for comment with no response," and it was like, I was in detention. How the hell did you want me to respond? They're just so full of it.
Everything they do. Everything they do. This is one of the hallmarks of what they do. I've had this happen to me many times. They'll reach out for you to comment about a half hour before the article goes up. You could be at the freaking dentist. You could be walking your dog.
But in her own report, she was reporting that I was in detention.
Yeah.
It's like, how dumb do you think everyone is?
They think people are pretty dumb, and I hate to tell you, but I can already predict what's going to happen here. There'll be a couple hit pieces about this. You'll be said, "Oh, they put you on alt-right Rubin's show," and but I mean,
I'm the Jewish Nazi in Australia, so I think you might be the one in for a problem.
Yeah, that's fine. Listen, I've taken the slings and arrows. That's all right. What do you think this says about the way this nonsense is spreading across borders? Because as you know, I was on tour with Peterson for the last year, and we went to a ton of countries, including about 10 stops in Australia. And the Australian shows were absolutely phenomenal. I mean, just the audiences were incredible. I just love you guys.
He's loved here.
Well, there was just such a zest for life and fun. I went out with audience members almost every night after the show. I seriously just had an absolute blast. But what I'm amazed by right now, after the last year, is that I've seen the way the world operates online and on Twitter and on YouTube. But then I've traveled the world, and I've been to Sweden and to Denmark and Canada and US and Ireland and all over the place. And the fact that there are people in all of these places that are thousands of miles away from each other thinking the same exact things, it's pretty powerful. And I think that right there is what these guys fear more than anything else, that there actually is a worldwide pushback against their nonsense. Are you feeling that?
Absolutely. And that's why they're shutting people down, or they're trying to. You see, personally, I've been shut off Facebook for things that they can't even back it. You ask them for any evidence and they can't show you what it is exactly. And that's the way that they're trying to silence you. All these different organizations. The fact again that within 24 hours my whole page was shut down shows me that there is a collusion there between Comedy Central and that's not some crazy conspiracy theory. That is just common sense. Those are easy dots to connect there.
Yeah. Why do you think YouTube left the video up if Facebook took it down? Because I'm sure
I
Comedy
don't.
Central tried on
I,
YouTube too.
I don't know. Maybe it's earning them money. I don't know. I don't know why. But YouTube I've found over the last year has been better than Facebook, or until they get pressured. For example, my good friend Tommy Robinson, they pulled his page straight off Facebook. YouTube actually defended keeping his channel up until a number of Labor MPs really bullied Facebook into they didn't want to backtrack. They defended their stance. They said he never breached their terms and conditions. So then they backtracked once there was about 2 months of lobbying. I would call it bullying by Labor MPs in the UK. And then suddenly they didn't want to say they banned him, so they heavily restricted his channel. YouTube, I think unless there is some political thing that so far I think they're starting to recognize that you're running your business into the ground. Facebook is running their business into the ground, and you can see it even just in their shares. But it is a dying thing. We've all gone to Telegram. We've gone to a like it's basically the WhatsApp that's protected not by Facebook but by two Russian brothers, and we're finding it fantastic. You get the response is so much better. You see the click throughs. It is absolutely unbelievable. But it is crazy that we're being forced to these other platforms that are meant to be messaging apps instead of using actual social media, because these different organizations, these different institutions hold so much power.
Yeah, wait, do you mean that you're actually spreading your videos through Telegram? I mean, I know it's a messaging app, but you're saying you're building an actual audience there? I didn't even know that was a thing.
We've got a group, Tommy Robinson News, we call it, Tommy Robinson News, and your members join like any page, and you can even embed likes and things so people can actually interact. It's a one-way wall, and you can link out. You can do it. It's so much better than we can literally upload videos there and say, okay, they're not letting us put videos on Facebook, but we'll upload it here with a little download button. We don't need our one page. You guys all have your own pages. You go upload and flood their different platforms with this content, and it is so much more effective. And I think that is going to be the future. To be honest, that is the future of social media. If they continue down this path, all of them are going to crash. From the Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, they're all going to crash unless they allow people to actually have a fair go.
Is the perverse part of this, I always say that it's like, if they would just not be totally horrible, we would all have nothing to talk about. It's like if they were 30% horrible or like 50% horrible, we'd kind of complain every now and again, and people would be like, they're always complaining. But then they do these sorts of things. It's like it's not that you're just going all the way horrible. It's not just that you selectively edit and you manipulate and you throw people under the bus and you try to just spread this chill effect so that, because it's not about destroying you, right? It's like they know, well, if we can destroy Avi, it's like we can take out thousands of other people that will never speak up again. And it's like, man, if you guys would just not be all in on the bullshit, then we'd probably have other things to be talking about.
Yeah, look, it absolutely is that. The fact is, I think they thought I was an easy target. They were probably a bit like you. They didn't really know who I was. They just knew, if you look in Australia, I'm probably the biggest name for alternative media here. And that's not because I'm that great, even though I think I am. But it's just that we don't have a big alternative media thing here. So I think they thought I'd be an easy target. They totally underestimated the fact that I am not an idiot. And that today to fight back is not that hard, because I keep saying this to people. I think people are looking for the truth. It's kind of the Trump effect and the whole idea of fake news. They said Trump is so nuts and he keeps going on about fake news. And it's like, they literally create fake news. That is actually a thing. And anyone that's had anything to do with media will know that fake news is a real problem. And that's not to say Trump is the best guy in the world or I'm the most innocent person in the world. I've done my fair share of things. But the fact is that these organizations are corrupt, so corrupt. and they act like they are so much better than us. They hold the moral high ground when they are the biggest scum in the world. They are literally worse than the worst people you know.
It's so strange. I tweeted something the other day about it's like Trump for his orange skin and his hair plugs and the crazy way he speaks. It's like somehow, despite all of that, he's more authentic than them. I mean, that tells it right there. It's right. Like this guy looks fake. He doesn't look like what a regular human being looks like. Like that's how fake he looks. And the way he speaks, the whole thing. And yet he can actually come off more authentic than these people because they're so polished and they got away with it for so long they don't even know how to do it right anymore.
I think it's the age of the internet where, before that, when we saw something on TV, it was polished, it was perfect. And that's what we got. If we seen something that was a little bit unpolished, it was kind of, that's rubbish, that's fake, that's not. Now we're in an age where, Google Hangouts, you can do a conversation from across the world, even if they deport someone. And it's the content, it's the words, it's the substance people are listening to, that nobody cares what Trump looks like. Nobody cares, even though he's rough around the edges and he's not that articulate, and nobody cares because people are like, what's he saying? What's he telling me? What's he defending? What's he standing up for? What's he standing against? And I think that's what shines through. Like I see it in myself. I look at him and I go, I like that, and it's just a bonus. He triggers the people I don't like a lot. Just
So I have an idea here because there's no doubt that there are dozens, I have no doubt, dozens of Comedy Central employees and executives watching this right now, sitting in their cubicles with their headphones because they don't want anyone to know that they're watching. But what I find is that over the course of this show, I have found people over the years, James Damore, Lindsay Shepard, Brett Weinstein, people who have, taken unpopular positions or basically stood up to the mob, I would say more than anything else, and they've survived. And you're obviously going to survive this. So why don't you talk directly to the Comedy Central employees right now, the executives who are going to have to make some decisions on that? We got about 8 minutes left. I mean, let's tell them what to do. We got it that you want the apology, but if they're there, if they're in the belly of the beast, what do you think they should do?
G'day, guys. My name's Avi. You probably recognize me from the last 2 weeks of headaches and sleepless nights. Do the right thing. Be a person for once. Step back a second and think about it, because I'm also a person. You might not agree with my positions. You might not like what I have to say. You may really dislike me. But what you did was wrong. What you did was fake. And if anything, hopefully you've learned something. And hopefully you've just turned around and looked in the mirror for a second and gone, that makes me a bad person. Like if that was my idea, or if I'm the editor, whoever it is. And also Jim Jeffries. I've heard people say, excusing Jim Jeffries. He's not the one that cuts it. You know what? He's certainly seen the final cut. He's also, had to do the pieces to camera where he knew he was throwing me under the bus. Look at yourself for a second, mate. You were sitting there acting like you're my best mate. We did a photo after. You were chill, and I walked out of that day going, maybe this is not going to end up the way I expected it to. Maybe you're actually going to be decent. And when I say decent, by just representing the person you interviewed, the person who flew halfway around the freaking world to be a part of your little show, just represent me. You didn't do that. So now is your chance to do the right thing. And don't even do it because you're scared of what's to come. And I promise you there's a lot to come. But do it because it is actually your chance to recognize what you did. And there are millions around the world who are watching. If that's your incentive, then so be it. But if it makes you actually recognize and become a bigger person out of it, then my job here is done.
Not bad, man. Somebody heard that, I guarantee you, and that's all it takes is a little spark with some of these people to get the inertia going.
Well, they often claim to work from an emotional place. I'm speaking to them right now on an emotional level because I'm grateful I caught it. I could not imagine where I would be emotionally. where would I be as a person emotionally if what was put out was just their version of events?
No, well, your career would be over, basically.
Not even my career, my mental,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything worse than, being blamed for something you didn't do. Knowing, like, if seeing what they produced and knowing the truth, me knowing, only me knowing, and me not being able to prove it to anyone. I couldn't imagine that. Like, and I consider myself a pretty strong person, like mentally strong. And I've been through a lot in my life. I don't know if I would have survived that. And that, they often talk about people, pushing people over the edge because how dare you criticize a religion or criticize ideas or say something against transgender or gay marriage because you're going to ruin people's psychology. What were you going to do to me? What were you going to do to another human being?
How long is it going to take you to get back into the States? Did they tell you once you fill out all this stuff, how long that all takes out?
It's just about a visa thing. And I've had a few great people reach out to me already, from, I don't want to highlight who they are, but people who wield power in the US. So I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. And as Arnie would say, I'll be back.
I think we hit the main points here.
Hopefully we did it.
Yeah, hopefully this does a little something. I mean, just this.
And I appreciate it.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
Wait, I will ask you one other thing actually before we wrap up. So I find
when 2 a.m. here, just so anyone knows, anyone who's judging me not only for my accent but for the way I'm stringing my sentences together, no, it's 2 a.m.
All right, you got to get to bed. So I'll just ask you one other thing then, which is, where do you think? I know you're not going to view it this way because I ask this question to a lot of people and they never accept the premise. But where do you think the bravery comes from within you that you're willing to fight this thing? Because everyone that I know that has stood up to the mob has survived, and not only has survived, has actually thrived.
Right.
Yet when I go out to colleges, when I do speaking gigs, the number one thing I get from people is I'm afraid. They're afraid to lose their job. They're afraid to lose family members. They're afraid to lose friends, et cetera, et cetera. So where do you think it comes from within you?
Honestly, I don't think of it as bravery. I think of it as stupidity.
Yeah.
I'll leave you with one story that pretty much sums it up for me. It actually, it's kind of how I feel every day. When I served in the Israeli army, I was in we were ambushed. I had an Arab, a really good friend of mine. He's an Arab officer, a Christian officer. And this just describes exactly how I feel every single day. And he says, so we were ambushed from in front. We were actually leaving the Gaza Strip. From in front, from about 5 meters in trees, there's 5 terrorists. And from behind, they were in long-range artillery. They were firing from 2 sides. Now, there was about 18 probably in the class. My gun, and it was an American M4. I'm not allowed to swear on this show, so I'm not going to say anything.
You can swear all you want.
It jammed. So I was basically standing on this dune, jumping from side to side, just dodging bullets. Now, at the end of the chopper had come, and like I thought that was the end that night. Like I don't really believe in God, really. I'm a proud Jew, but that's a separate story.
That's a whole other show.
That night, I was praying to God. And then when I heard that helicopter come and, started firing, and finally things had settled, and 2 of my friends had been hit. I was a marksman. Now, there's 2 marksmen in every class when you go into combat. The marksman at the front, there's one at the front, one in the middle. The marksman at the front was hit. So my officer, who didn't know my gun had jammed, had called me, said, Avi, because we've got to go around to the bodies to make sure, because obviously a lot of time they detonate as you walk past or whatever it is. So just to make sure the bodies and that they're actually dead. And he calls me over, and this is my answer to you. As we're walking around to the bodies, I've said to the officer, Dudi, just so you know, I have no gun. I have the scopes. The reason why they take the marksman is because I had the night vision and all that. I come around and we're coming around and it's just me and him. I said to him, I have no gun. He goes, what do you mean you have no gun? I said to him, my gun's jammed. And he's an Arab, so he starts cursing me in Arabic and telling me to get back to the line. What now? After all that, we got out. He till today thinks I deserve a medal for that stupidity, and I can't convince him. I've said to him, and I'm telling you genuinely, I have never been more shit scared in my life. I think I actually crapped myself that night. But it was the order, and it was just like the job needs to be done. And that's what I feel like so often now, I don't know what I'm going into. I don't know, if you tell me to go back to the days where I just owned gyms and just focused on, my life then, would I go back? It's a tough question. I don't want to think about it because some days you're in battles that you feel are overwhelming. But if I don't do it, who will?
I think the moral of the story is everyone should have an Arab Christian yelling at them.
He's a legend. Yes,
All right,
sir.
man. Well, listen. I hope we've moved the dial for you a little bit here. I look forward to you getting into the States so that you can sit in the seat right across from me and I can shake your hand. And good luck with everything. And Jeffries, you're welcome here too. I'll gladly be peacemaker. We got an extra chair, so let's see if we can do that. How about that?
I reckon we should sit together, have a coffee, and talk this one out. Hey, Jimmy boy. I love
Yeah.
you too.
We'll have a Foster's.
Mate, I don't know if you've been seeing those memes, but
I've seen them.
Yep, they're great.
Yeah. All right, right on, man.
Mate, thank you.
Get to bed.
Thank you so much. Thanks so
All
much
right.
for your work.
See you around.